to our watch along. And as we're just talking about today's match between the two teams right at the bottom of the table, and that is Netherlands as well as England, the defending champions. A very horrible start, a very horrible end as well to the tournament, as they have already been eliminated from the tournament. However, they will still be able to be fighting for a top 7 spot and just make sure that there is something that they still want to play for. And that means that they will be looking to cause upsets, of course, in today's match against Netherlands and in their remaining match of the tournament, to make sure that they finish in a very respectable way, very graceful, hopefully for them. But Tandy, you were just talking to us about that match between the two teams, and what's interesting is that in ODI formats, England has always won against Netherlands. However, in T20 formats, Netherlands has gotten the better of England, winning 2 times against England. So today is an ODI match. It's going to be interesting to see if England will still continue with that momentum of winning against Netherlands, because Netherlands are yet to win a match in ODI formats against England.
Oh yeah, and like what we always say, we believe in stats, but today I feel like Netherlands today is so much what you call it, so much to prove that they can do this thing, and they know they need to protect their position where they are. Because if they lose today's game and the next one, that means they're automatically out, and they won't want to be that. They know, right, we're in the ninth position. There's a chance for us to make it to the top 7 or top, at least go up to the 8th position to just save themselves. I'm sure they wouldn't want to go back again to the qualifiers, as they were coming from qualifiers again. So it's one of those, they wouldn't want to lose. At the same time, England is still in that pride moment where they're saying, we can't go down without the fight. So they know that they have nothing to lose. They're at the bottom, really. There's no way they can go lower than that. But the only way now for them is just to go up. And as for Netherlands, it's the other way around. There's the last position and then either going up. So it's one of those tricky situations. And like what you're saying to us, the England has been winning all the ODI games, even including the World Cup ODI. They've been winning all those against Netherlands. So today, even if you look at the Google prediction, it's always going to favor England. But today they need to prove us wrong and be like, you know what? Yes, we have been losing against England. This is a different time. We're going to take this and we're going to take it all the way. So they should be motivated that since they won against South Africa, and South Africa has been stronger than England either way, that means they have a chance to win against England. And so far, as I was just going through the score, it's 63-1. England won the toss and elected to bat first. So 1 wicket has gone, and that's Johnny. So
in the first power play,
they're only on 7.6 overs now. So that means if they manage to eliminate most of them right now and they try to clear up at the end, I think it's going to be in their advantage. At the same time, it might a little bit struggle to bet the second time, but we'll see how that will go. And hopefully the miracle that happened with Australia will happen again with Netherlands.
And before we went to the break, I think you were just going to take us through the pitch report and how that goes. But while I give you time to just find that, we're speaking about England already being a wicket down in the first power play, and as always, they seem to not have it. They seem to not be well settled, especially in the first power play. In most of the games that they played, they've gotten at least if 1 or 2, 3 wickets in the first power play. We see it's no different today, but we'll see how the first power play ends and if they will end it like this with just 1 wicket down. But just going to that pitch report, who is it favoring at this point? Is it the team that is betting first, or the team that will be betting later, probably with some dew at the time?
It's saying that it's mostly a good surface for batsmen, really, because the boundary is a little bit shorter. And right now, it's going to be favoring the batting guys compared to the bowlers because it's easier and the ground is a little bit dry compared to later on in the evening. That's when it will be a little bit slow and sticky. So it will be more challenging for the batsmen. But the highest score which has been scored in this ground is 356, and that was India versus Bangladesh, and the average score is 278. So no matter what happens, at least they need to pass the average score, and they know they're safer. Because in the first inning, the average score in the first innings is 256, 265, sorry.
Yeah.
So you can see that it's a favorable pitch. If you can maximize right now before the conditions changes, sure. So they just need to set up a good score for them to be able to defend in their home and dry for England.
Yeah, and with the team like the Netherlands, a team that also can do both, be it chasing and they'll be tested this time around in chasing, and we'll see how that one goes because the game that they won against South Africa, they were betting first, so it will be interesting to see them chasing in this one game. You spoke about England just looking to set a score that would be high for Netherlands to not be able to chase. And for me, I think that score would be anything above 250 just to be on the safe side for them. And of course, Netherlands will obviously just go into that one looking to chase it and chase really well.
I'm still for the team 300, no matter how hard it is. I always think that 300 is a safer choice, but like what you're saying, 250, it's fair, but I think 280 would be much
But this is
safer.
England, so the struggles in that department when it comes to setting scores.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. So you're team 300, but just coming back to the reality of that
Yeah.
of England, knowing that they've never set a score above 300 in this tournament. So it will be a test for them actually this one to see if they will be able to surpass that 250 mark. But we are going to be talking to David Brooks in a moment, and of course we have to go back to the conversation that everybody's just still talking about to this day, today, and I believe for the rest and the remainder of the tournament, that in Glenn Maxwell just putting on a performance of the tournament. I believe in my eyes there was a performance of the tournament. He's done really well yesterday, and I believe that he single-handedly taken the team to the semi-finals, and of course Australia are of course the third team to occupy that space, and something to know, play to write home about, just becoming the first player to score a double century in an ODI chase.
I'm actually more curious if only Charles will be there for them to tell us how they are feeling right now as they saw it
And the
after
bed,
Sun winning and things just turning around, their views of what happened. So
especially with the celebrations that happened last night in the studio and that last watch along. So it will be interesting to see if people will be accountable in this match, and of course that will be David as well as Tasman. So David, thank you so much for joining us. How is the humble pie tasting this morning?
Well, the humble pie. It's tasting good. I don't know whether you can see this on the screen, but what have I got in my hands?
Mm,
so
Can you
it's
see what
really
I?
good.
that's
So
that's the humble pie.
no, the
Well, no,
spoon.
it's the wood.
You eating the humble pie.
No, I have no humble pie to eat because I've been down on England since the start. This is a wooden spoon that the teams are playing for today.
But let's talk about that match yesterday. Everybody in the studio was just Team Afghanistan. Everybody was just talking about how that match was a done deal. And I remember we were even made to do some celebrations like this. But now people are not here to account. You seem to be the only one here to account today.
Well, it was an amazing game. I mean, I don't know whether you, I got up early to go on the breakfast show today, and our friend Paul from Australia, he was floating on cloud nine. He said that he felt amazing because he felt so superior to everyone else in Australia that would have slept through this because the match Maxwell's heroics, that was 3 a.m. in the morning Australia time. And
Sure.
this morning I saw 4 a.m. UK time, and
Mm.
Mhm.
there aren't many people awake at that time. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, that very big moment for Australia yesterday. When we left the studio, the score was 97 for 7. And of course, with Maxwell just coming in and the rest just being history, a total of 201 runs, the most in this year's tournament of the World Cup, especially coming from a chase with an injury at that. Surely for me, I believe you would agree with me. That's performance of the tournament.
Undoubtedly. I mean, many people are saying, a lot of people,
Mm.
that it's the greatest one day innings they've ever seen. In fact, some people don't even say one day innings, they're saying it's the greatest innings they've ever seen. And,
Mm.
but yeah, because, yeah, he couldn't walk. I mean, the guy couldn't walk by the end
At
of it.
all.
Yeah.
His feet were planted. Maxwell's feet were planted. He couldn't move his leg. He couldn't move either leg because I think it
Yeah.
was his back rather than his legs. He had
Yeah.
cramp, severe cramp, and
Mhm.
it was like just to watch him and how he responded to that was extraordinary. And I'm so glad that it's happened for Glenn Maxwell, because he's not been a regular pick for Australia,
Mhm.
far from it. Yesterday we talked about the mental health problems that cricketers have experienced on the international stage. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glenn Maxwell's been through it. He really has, because he's been dropped more
Mm.
times than the Afghan fielders dropped him yesterday. He's in
Yes.
and out of that. What I mean is, he's in and out of that Australia team. He's never had a permanent place. He's never fitted in. He's a different type of individual to your standard, gum chewing Australian player. He's got feelings. He expresses himself, and I'm so happy for him that it's come good for him because he's worked really hard on his game, and I think he should be an automatic pick now in all formats for Australia,
Definitely.
including Test cricket, where he's got a very good average and has done so well. When you think about all the people they've tried in the Australia team, it's been a conveyor belt, hasn't it? Mitch Marsh was the latest one to come back into that middle order. Give a permanent place now to Glenn Maxwell after what he did for his country. That was the most astonishing innings I can remember seeing. I'm old enough to remember Gordon Greenwich for West Indies playing on one leg and scoring the double century. And people always said, be wary of Gordon Greenwich whenever he's injured. He was the West Indies opener in the 1970s. I've had to go back for 40 years, 50 years to think of another innings like that where someone's been so injured and yet they've
Yeah.
battled through. And as you say, 200 in a chase, I
Yeah.
don't think that's been achieved before. And
Yeah.
it's just, the statistics are absolutely remarkable. As you say, 91 for 7 written off, more or less. Although one or two people did, that nobody had given up hope. There were a couple of people who said Maxwell could do this. If anyone could do it, it was Maxwell. And I made a rather flippant remark, I think, about how he'd fallen off the back of a golf cart and therefore he was not going to be on his A game. Well, how wrong could I be? Although maybe that cramp had something to do with the way that he fell off the back of the golf cart. But whatever the reason for his cramp, he battled through it, and the shots, and oh my god, I mean, obviously for Afghanistan, the wheels came off the wagon, not the golf cart, but the wagon, you know, and
Yeah.
people are forgetting now the role that Afghanistan played in that match. It takes two to tango, and you think back to the forgotten man, Ibrahim, Zadran. It's such a difficult name to say, and
It is.
people have conveniently forgotten his contribution, not just with the bat. What an amazing catch he took, reflex catch, to
Yeah.
get rid of, was it Mitchell Stark? I can't remember now. One of the wickets that fell, I think it was Mitchell Stark. And if Mitchell Stark had reviewed that instead of walking off, he would have been called back. And Glenn Maxwell had so much good fortune early on. Was it good fortune or was it a weakness that we talked about yesterday? I said Afghanistan will win this if they take their catches. They showed early on that they can drop them. And, well, I mean, they dropped him 3 times. One of them was an
Yeah.
absolute sitter. I mean, Majid must be the worst fielder in the tournament. And of course, the catch went to him, the really easy one, and he put it down. And that's the one weakness which Jonathan Trott is probably going to have to work on if he's still in position at the end of the tournament. Not because Afghanistan won't want him, because he's been brilliant for them, but England might come fishing with their big wallets, and they'll be trying to buy their way out of this situation that they find themselves in today.
You mentioned that it takes two to tango, and it really did take the two teams yesterday to tango when everybody else had already written off Australia in that match. Because, like I said, when we left the studio, they were already 7 wickets down, and came in Glenn Maxwell. But also, we are not to discredit what Afghanistan did, especially yesterday, and especially for a team that really started the way that they did in this tournament, coming through with the 21-year-old doing what he did also yesterday, scoring a century. Afghanistan setting the highest score, breaking their own records. So I believe that this team is the team to look out for in the next couple of years.
For sure. They can no longer be called minnows. They can no
At all.
longer be regarded as the associate nation or former associate nation. And teams have got to
Yes.
start playing them in bilateral matches. It's not on for Australia to say, "Oh, we're not going to play Afghanistan anywhere except on home soil." No, there should be. The top teams have got to start playing them because they are one of the top teams, and they're going to finish above England. They're going to finish above Sri Lanka, above Bangladesh.
Netherlands
So
as well.
West Indies aren't even here. Netherlands. They're going to be in the top 5. And there's no excuse now. England had better go and play them too. It's not the big 3 may want to keep it all to themselves: India, Australia, and England. But we've seen from Afghanistan, from South Africa, but in particular, and in glimpses from Pakistan as well, that
Mm.
the big 3 are not going to have it all their own way. That
Yeah.
the world of cricket needs competition. It's no good if the same teams win all the time. Where's the enjoyment? Where's the spectacle in that? World cricket
Yeah.
needs more than 3 strong teams, and the big 3 have a responsibility to play against Afghanistan, to play against South Africa. How many test matches have South Africa got scheduled in the next year? 2, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's about time that the big 3 stopped taking all the cake for themselves and started giving a piece of the action to these other countries, because they're not minnows. They're not second tier. They may not
Yeah.
have the economic advantages of England, India, and Australia, but my God, they've got the talent, haven't they? And they're showing what they can do on the world stage.
Of course. Another thing that I found to be very interesting coming from, Afghanistan yesterday, I've already spoken about the age of this youngster who did incredibly well for Afghanistan yesterday. Just in your views, how important is it to start now, promoting the young ones? Either you see them playing for the under 19s, under 18s. Would you say that now is the time? Because you've got, I don't want to say old players, but people who would be retiring anytime from now in different teams in this tournament.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at England. They fielded a team in the last game, which was all over 30. They've given a place in this team to Harry Brook and Gus Atkinson in the game today. It's interesting to see who's been left out. I was just looking through the names to see who are going to be the casualties for England. And it's not a question of age, it's a question of ability. And Liam Livingstone has been omitted today, and I don't think he'll get a game for another game for a while because he's merely missed his chance. He's a batsman who bowls a bit, but he hasn't scored any runs. And this man coming out to bat now in the power play, Joe Root, the best English batsman of his generation, but not necessarily the best with the white ball in the 50 overs and doesn't play the 20. If you remember, he got an IPL contract last year and didn't get a game. He was carrying the drinks. And when he came back, he said something very strange. He said he learned more from carrying the drinks in the IPL than playing for his club, Yorkshire. Now, that's the type of arrogance and complacency that Roland Butcher spoke about this morning in his interview on the Breakfast Show. Roland Butcher, who knows a bit about this, he was the first black player to play for England, had a long career for England and Middlesex, and he's now a selector for West Indies. So he knows a thing or two. And he said that England's attitude to this tournament has been arrogant in that they failed to make any preparation. They just thought they could turn up as the defending champions and win this by just hitting the ball as they have been in England. But it's not the same conditions. They should have come out early and had some practice in these conditions. And you need people who've got a defence. I mean, the guy who's not out at the moment, Dawood Malan, I'd say he's had quite a good tournament because he's shown that he got that 90, didn't he, in one of the first games. And he's shown that he has got what it takes. But he's not one of the guys that's been given a contract. Can you imagine in a dressing room the contracts for the central contracts being handed out during the World Cup? So you've got guys there who've been given 3-year contracts, all the fancy salaries, sponsored cars and everything. And then there's other guys who've been given nothing. How are they supposed to feel? David Willey has announced his immediate retirement. He's not standing for that. He didn't get a contract. And he's been one of the better players. And I don't think Dawood Malan's got one either. So what is going on in that England camp? Why are they getting it so wrong at the administrative level? Because that's where I draw the comparisons with South Africa, where they've got it right now, haven't they? They've got, at the Cricket South Africa level, the board, it seems to be working well. Touch wood. Oh, I'll touch the wooden spoon. Not for South Africa. This is what they're playing for today. When you come bottom, it's also good for hitting yourself over the head. But just to wake myself up. But I think that Cricket South Africa. I'd be interested to get what your comments on this. They seem to have got it right now. When they organised the new T20 tournament, that seemed to go really well, and they've also got the team selection right. You can't argue with the team that's been selected today. The days of the quotas system, are kind of hopefully going over because these players are worth their place on merit. It's not a quota-based team anymore. And but I love seeing Puma in charge, and I really want to see him lift the trophy. But my God, with the form that India and Australia are now showing, they must be now the outsiders of the 4 semi-finalists.
And it's going to be interesting, with only just one spot to go. And I love what you're saying about, Cricket South Africa. There's definitely been in the past talks about, the team, and of course that word that I don't like to use, of the whole team being chokers. Now there's been a new squad that's been selected, and of course, of fairly young people as well. You've also got Quinton de Kock playing his best cricket so far, and of course, this won't be his last one. And just to go back to what you said, from the England side of things, it seems that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than on the actual field, and it will take whole team to fix whatever that is happening behind the scenes for the whole team to be able to finally compete, in the next tournament. And if things are not even fixed, then this means another trophyless, 4 years for England.
Well, I agree with that. I think that, when the team's not settled and when there's trouble at the top, it feeds through into lack of confidence, and lack of, it's very difficult to be confident if you think you're playing your last match and you haven't been given a contract.
Yeah.
And those people that have been given contracts, I think Mark Wood has been given 3 years. He's not playing today either. And, it just seems extraordinary bad judgment. And so there's been some very, very poor administration in England. Talking about Quentin de Kock playing his last match, I wouldn't be so sure, I wonder whether he's only 30. I wonder whether he could be persuaded to come back into the fold, because he wouldn't have been expecting to have this sort of tournament. 4 centuries, extraordinary.
Yeah.
Surely he's going to want more challenges like this tournament, and he's not going to settle for this sort of semi-retirement franchise circuit life that people do at the end of their career. It's fine when he's 38, 37, but he's 30. It's no age at all from my perspective. And some of the greatest performances ever.
Yeah. Wouldn't this be the greatest way to retire, though? You've got something to talk about. And like when you retire because you're forced to, because you're not producing the results for your team.
Well, I know it's the old thing about you don't want to get the tap on the shoulder and be told, not picked for the next game. No one wants that. But surely Quentin de Kock has got more to give South African cricket. And if he's settled and happy, which he looks like he is now, then I would have thought if he sat down with the right people, they could talk him round, And he's probably very sensitive to how he's been treated in the past. He was ostracized during that whole Black Lives Matter thing with the knee and all that, having to take the knee. And that was politics getting involved in sport. And he said, look, I don't want to be part of that. And I think his decision to retire is kind of tied up with that era. Surely this is a new era now. It's a new Quentin de Kock that we've seen. In fact, you could argue it's the old one come back, the one that we remember. And I'm not saying he's going to go back and play Test cricket, but surely he'll be there in the next World Cup. Look, Ben Stokes was persuaded to come out of retirement to play in this tournament. And he's only got one working knee. Quentin de Kock looks like he's fully fit. And I think the Chokers label, it's short. Everyone's banding it around. So the players will know the history. They'll be acutely aware of that. So that toss is going to be vital in the semi-final. Well, whoever they play in the semi-final, they're going to want to bat first. And the opposition will have no question to bat first if they win the toss. So, we talked about the fact that when they should use that game against Netherlands coming up on Friday in Ahmedabad, they should use that to try and, exorcise the ghost of this, they can't chase, they can't choke. They have to put the Netherlands into bat on. If they win the toss and bat on Friday, I think they'll have missed a huge opportunity to lay that ghost to rest. Otherwise they'll be carrying that baggage to the semi-final. And if you're carrying baggage and the other team hasn't got baggage, who's going to move quicker? Who's going to be smarter? Life's much better without. Life's much better without baggage. As I discovered myself when I lost all my suitcases in Spain recently on holiday, they were all stolen. No, I lost everything, and I actually didn't mind. I was actually lighter. It's quite nice just traveling light, and I felt a lightness. And you don't want to carry baggage with you anywhere. And if some of this baggage can be shared, then that has to be a benefit.
You've said quite a mouthful, and I totally do agree with you that South Africa do have this one last game that they'll be playing this Friday against Afghanistan to just try and test out if they've really trained enough to just put that label of not being able to chase to bed. However, if they do go into the semi-finals and they don't win the toss, obviously every team knows South Africa's weakness. That is chasing. So every team that will want to play against them, nobody wants to have them bat first because that they'll give you a score of a 350 plus, and that will be so much for you to chase. However, if they don't win that toss in the semi-final. I believe that this match that's upcoming will be a very key one to just test if they are able to chase.
Absolutely, they have to do that in advance. I mean, otherwise they'll have one opportunity to do that, and the chances are they're going to lose one of the two tosses. I mean, it's 50-50.
Yeah.
To win both tosses is statistically unlikely. So, and the semi-final is the key one, isn't it? Because if you don't win that, there is no final.
Very key. Yeah.
And I don't know whether have we worked out? I haven't worked it out yet in terms of who they get to play. Do we know what the semi-finals look like yet, or do we have to wait? I think we have to wait for the result of England-Pakistan match.
Team.
Yeah. Who do you think? Who would you like to see South Africa play in the semi-final?
I think there is no easier team in the semi-final. I mean, already you've got 3 brilliant teams in India, South Africa, as well as Australia. We'll see who will take the final spot of the semi-final. But I think they would like to probably face, if Pakistan do make it through to the semi-finals, they would like to see that, wouldn't they? They would like to have Pakistan to play that match against them. That's what I think they would like.
Yeah, I think they're likely to get India, aren't they? They would like to play Pakistan probably, but I think South Africa are likely to play India. And we've seen what happened when they batted second. I don't want to remind you, but they didn't do so well, and they were rolled over, weren't they? So, yeah, I think they're heading to play against India. I'm not certain of that because, as you say, I don't think anyone's certain yet. But
yeah.
You're going to have to play and win the tournament. So nobody remembers who the losing semi-finalists are. I can't remember who the losing semi-finalists were in the last World Cup. I remember England beating New Zealand in ridiculous circumstances at Lord's 4 years ago. Do you remember that occasion? My God, it was such an unlikely win because it looked like New Zealand got it sewn up. And then we had a super over. Now, we haven't seen any super overs. My wife loves a super over in this house. That's the one thing that interests her about cricket is you get a super over and you get you get all the drama of like a penalty shootout in soccer.
And
had one of those, and there haven't been that many close finishes, but I still think it's been a really good tournament, and think it's put 50 over cricket really back in its place. And those administrators looking to kill it should really think again, shouldn't they? And I think that Indian fans will want it. And I know that there's a T20, but there's also an ODI series between India and South Africa immediately after the World Cup. And I think those ODIs will be particularly interesting. But, you want to it needs to be a context for the ODIs. And, for what I've seen, they're going to scrap the idea of the ODI league and all that. And I'm not sure that even at the top level of the ICC, that cricket has got the right people in charge. There may be the right people in charge at Cricket South Africa, but we need some of them or some of the more enlightened administrators, to have more influence at the ICC. The current chairman, he's from New Zealand, Mr. Barclay, and I haven't liked anything that he said so far. It's all about the money. But how much money does cricket need? How much money do the big three need? They've already got 10 times the resources of South Africa, Afghanistan, West Indies. How much more do they need? And is that the point of it all? Is the point of it to make as much money as possible? Or is the point of it to promote the game and to get the most people watching it and playing it? I think the latter.
Yeah.
What do you think?
David?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the last part? I lost you there.
Well, I'm saying, what is the point of ICC? Is it there to make the most money for the big three because they seem to take the majority of it? Or is it there to promote the game of cricket and get the maximum number of people enjoying it, both watching and playing? I think it's that they should be focused on. And if it means that slightly
Yeah.
less revenue as a result. Who cares? Because it all goes to India, England, and Australia anyway.
Who cares? But I think there'll always be politics. It's not only in cricket. We see these politics even in football. So I guess these are the things that we'll never really get to understand, because it's always all about the money and less about the teams that they should be serving, and of course the people who love the beautiful game. So those sides of the politics, I don't think is one thing that we'll ever get to understand, because it's just so mind-boggling how people in higher positions just always wants to make it about money, over the interest of people and just loving the beautiful game.
Is that how they think they will be judged? Are they lining their own pockets? I don't know. There are plenty of enlightened administrators within the ICC. There are plenty of good administrators,
Yeah.
and we've seen from Cricket South Africa. I'm trying to think of others, but I can't think of too many others. But there has to be a better way, and you have to ask the question. If this was a private company, I would agree with you. If it was a private company with shareholders, I'd say, yeah, you got to make the most money because the shareholders have invested their money and they want to see a return. But no, world cricket is for everyone. And, everyone should be able to play and watch and enjoy
True.
the sport. And, it shouldn't just be about money, because that's short-term gain, long-term pain. Look, England
Yeah.
made a decision this summer to play a tournament called the 100 because they thought it was going to make them a lot of money. Guess what? It isn't. It's costing them a
It was
fortune. Do you remember the first do you remember the first T20 tournament in South Africa? That was badly
Yeah.
organized. It cost them a fortune. It got it completely wrong. So I believe there's been a change in the administrators since that time in South Africa. I think there's different people in charge now, and I think
They,
Graham Smith's been involved, hasn't he? And
I think
I
so.
don't
The
know
last
what the
time
view
I
of
checked, yeah.
what's the view of Graham Smith in South Africa? Is he seen as being, the man in charge, as it were, or is he going up or is he going down?
I mean, if we started talking about politics, it'll never end. But let me just give you a quick update as to what's happening currently. Your team betting first against Netherlands today. Currently, it is 101 for the loss of one in 16 overs. That's not a very bad start for England. They seem to be waking up very late in the tournament. What do you make of this score so far?
Well, it is a good start. I mean, Johnny Bairstow is the man out, and I wonder whether his time at the top of the order will be. I think that'll be the end of Johnny Bairstow in one-day internationals. I mean, he flatters to deceive because on a flat track, when the ball's not doing anything, he will hit it
Mm.
further and more frequently than anyone else. But what do you do when you go to a tournament in India? What do you do when you have to play in different conditions? So, Johnny Bairstow might be picked for home games. But I think if you're looking towards the next World Cup, which is in South Africa,
Mm.
Zimbabwe, and Namibia, if you look towards that World Cup in 4 years' time, I can't see Johnny Bairstow being in the team. So he'll be replaced. The interesting one at the moment is these two who are there. They're both over 30, Dawood Milan and Joe Root. Joe Root
Mm.
with massive career behind him. But Dawood Milan, I think he's been the pick of the England bats. He got 90 odd, didn't he, in an early part of the tournament. So, and he got a 50
Yeah.
in the last, I think, in the last match. So, he's looked pretty good. He's found a few unlucky ways of getting out. But I think he's one of the few England players who can hold their head up high at the end of this tournament. Ironically, I don't believe he's one of the players that's been given the contract. So that
Mm.
suggests, yeah, it's either politics or confusion, or is it just not politics? Is it nepotism? Is it Joss Butler picking his mates who he's comfortable with that he played with in the last World Cup? I think that rather than politics has got in the way. I think maybe Joss Butler has been too loyal to the group of players around him, and he feels more comfortable. And any team that doesn't constantly refresh themselves, you can't say that about Australia, because they do bring in younger players, and they always seem to have a game plan. When someone goes, there's always a ready replacement. But England, there'll be a night of the long knives, and I'm not expecting Joss Butler to continue as captain. By the time England go to the Caribbean, which is straight after this, they play in December a series of T20s and ODIs against West Indies. And English cricket moves quite slowly. And I'd be surprised if they don't take the same coach and the same captain there. And so there'll be an opportunity to get themselves off the hook. But come the new year, surely they must look to replace those two in those two positions, the captain and the coach. Because you hear people say, "Oh, it's the players' fault. They should take responsibility." But as we were talking about, yeah. But you were putting me right on that. You both were talking about the importance of the coach, and Tasman too was talking about that. If you haven't got the right coach and the right captain, as we've been saying, in soccer, you point the finger straight away. If you lose 6 games in a row, you're out. I mean, the guy at Manchester United seems hanging on by his fingertips, but he might not be there for much longer. But going back to today's game between England and Netherlands, if David Milan scores a century, which I think he will, that should assure him of a continued place in the team to go to West Indies, because the pressure will be on to drop everyone over 30 and just do it by age. They shouldn't do it by age. They should look at who's the best team and who's got the most potential. So, because you also want to mix. I think you want a mix of youth and experience. When you just put out a really young team like Sri Lanka did, Bangladesh, you wish that they had some more experience there. And so I hope that Darwin survives the cull. There's going to be a cull, isn't there? And I hope that Darwin Milan survives that. And if he scores a century today, he's almost guaranteed to be on the plane to the Caribbean in December.
Yeah.
The
age thing seems to be, quite a thorny one, because, for example, in South Africa as well, there is this thing in the national football team. The coach has made it clear when they appointed him that he will not be playing anyone above the age of 30. And he applied that, and he saw that it failed, because you also need experienced players to be in your squad. That's when he started bringing in, the guys that are slightly above 30. And that's when now you see the team winning the games. The very same thing that you're talking about, that, you don't just drop the people under the age of 30 or so. You need to have a very balanced team. And the squad has to depend on individual performances as well, because individually they have to do brilliantly, so that as a team collectively, they are able to even do better.
Absolutely right. They need that. And I'm just having a look at the odds at the moment, just on this match. And I've just had a little punt here on David Milan getting to his century. I had a little look at that earlier on, and I've just topped up. Are we allowed to talk about betting? I know it's not legal in India, but we seemed to talk about it yesterday because it is legal in the rest of the world. And a lot of us in England, we like to have a little punt just because it makes it interesting. It's only fun bets. It's not big bets, but it just makes it interesting because you're testing yourself to see whether you're right. And to be proved right is always a nice thing. Also, it gives you some proof. You can say, look, here's the £6 I got for my £1. But I'm still... but I suppose if you were looking for a long price winner of the World Cup at the moment, you'd go for Pakistan, because you never know which Pakistan team is going to show up. And if they're just peaking now and they've got Fakhar Azam in such great form, which takes the pressure off Babar Azam and Rizvan. And if they've got all those firing and they've got a good bowling attack, haven't they? God, Afghanistan would love to have had a few overs from someone like Shaheen Afridi or Wazim, because they only had the one pace bowler yesterday, and it was swinging. And if they'd had more, they were relying on the 4 spinners, and I think that helped Glenn Maxwell a lot because he was getting used to the pace and he could just swing, even though he had no working legs. He was just able to stand there and swing. It makes it sound like he was lucky. It was brilliant hitting, wasn't it? I mean, I've never seen anyone strike the ball like that. And I mean, obviously wanted Afghanistan to win, not because it was Australia, because I really think that would be great for world cricket. And, the reason why Afghanistan's got so many young players is, of course, that the older players older people in Afghanistan don't know cricket. They've only really taken it up since they were refugees in Pakistan. They learned it in Pakistan. So, cricket's got a completely different profile in Afghanistan to it has in England. In England, you've got a lot of older people like myself watching it. But in Afghanistan, it's really exciting because it's the young people that have taken to it. They've made it their sport. And when the young people get hold of something, usually something interesting happens. And they've taken hold of cricket. My own club, I still play cricket down in Brighton. And there we've got a really big Afghan community down there. Most of them refugees. One of our best players, he came over, smuggled on the back of a lorry, was dumped on the side of the road on the motorway. And that's his background. Lost his family, lost his mother and father to the war. And he's manages to get over to England. He's fully legal. England have given him a home and the foster parents and stuff. And apparently the first time he went out with his new foster parents, he saw a game of cricket taking place. It was a Sussex League match between Worthing and Horsham, like Premier League. And he sees the match. He says, "Stop the car." And he runs out of the car straight onto the field saying, "Guys, can I join in?" And imagine that in a Premier League match. And so they liked his enthusiasm and they said, "Look, we can't slot you in now. There's a game going on, but come to our nets on Wednesday and we'll have a look at you." And he's now become a regular, in that team and then joined my club. So, these stories about refugees coming over with nothing, having lost everything, and finding cricket as their way of integrating. Because now he's a key part of the club. He's met people, he's got friends. You know how difficult it is to meet, people from the home country. I know people who've lived here for years and say they still haven't met an English person, and yet, but as soon as they start playing cricket, they integrate with the local community. They make friends of all ages, all types, and it really helps them find their feet. I did some work actually on this with grassroots cricket. I'm very involved in that and helping to integrate that Afghans when they come over, both on the field and off the field, just giving them some help with their English, giving them some help with, telling them about the history, teaching that through cricket. And, we do some classroom sessions as well, which the guys really like. It means they get to build up their knowledge of the game. We show them videos of past matches. They love that. And it's really satisfying that. And the enthusiasm that they are showing for the World Cup now. I mean, all my WhatsApp groups are full of the Afghan boys really celebrating. And I think it's great. And they weren't too disappointed yesterday because I think they realized they were in a really good match. And Afghanistan had acquitted themselves really well. No one's going to watch that game and say, "Oh, they lost. They're not good enough." They clearly gave Australia the struggle of their lives. And it took a minor miracle, a cricketing miracle, for Australia to get, a one-man miracle worker, a one-man Glenn Maxwell, who's not even assured of his place in that Australia team. I mean, can you imagine that? Every time you go out to bat, you're playing for your place. I mean, that is not fair on him. Let's hope he gets a real run now, and he'll be probably the key man now as they go into the semi-final and final. He'll be walking on air because his place, he's got 2 games, he's going to be playing in them as long as they win the semi-final. That's probably the first time. 3 games, because don't forget, on Saturday, they are playing in the early match against Bangladesh. So, that's Australia. Yes, that's right. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, I'm confusing myself. So Australia versus Bangladesh is the early game on Saturday. And then a game I'm really looking forward to is England's next match against Pakistan. How are they getting on today? What's the latest?
They're currently on 127 for one in 19.1 overs.
And what's Milan got now? Is he nearing a century?
He has 82 runs of 66 balls.
Well, that's a great knock from him, isn't it? He's really given England the best possible start because they won't want to trip over this banana skin. So slightly, you slide on it. They won't want to slide on the banana skin because Netherlands will be fighting hard because they. Do you think that they've actually peaked a bit too early and that we might have seen the best of the Netherlands? I have a feeling that they're on the way down. They did very well at the start of the tournament, and obviously they had an amazing qualifying tournament in Zimbabwe, where they put up, they beat West Indies, and that's why they're here now. And they beat them fair and square. It wasn't even close. They had a good start to the tournament, and I just wonder they had a big win, didn't they, over
South Africa as well.
Yeah, South Africa. Sorry to bring that up. But I wonder whether the tournament is taking its toll. It's a long tournament, and surely the experience and the stamina of the big players comes into its own. It's a bit like in a football match, you'd have substituted them by now, but you haven't got subs, and they'll have to play the 90 minutes, including injury time. And I wonder whether the Netherlands have got like the fitness and the mental kind of resilience to continue to improve. This should be an easy win for England today, shouldn't it? And you kind of expect India to give them a real hiding on Sunday when India play Netherlands in Bengaluru. That I'm also looking forward to that. But the fact is, we're looking forward to every game in the group stages. There's hardly been any dead rubbers. There's hardly been any games that don't matter. There's always something of interest. And, I could get used to this. Top quality international cricket every day. We've done it for is it 3 weeks, 4 weeks? I'd love to do it for 52 weeks.
Yeah, I think that would be very interesting.
Be desperate for some fresh air by then. What's the latest? What's the latest from Delhi? How are conditions for you in Delhi?
It's getting a bit cooler. I think it's because it's approaching winter, so they say. So it's been very cool. I am no longer complaining about the heat, or maybe my body has adjusted. I'm not sure between the two which one it is. Is it getting cooler or my body has adjusted? But I'm enjoying the weather so far. It's unlike when we arrived. It was scorching hot when we got here, but it's gotten much better.
And is the air quality better?
I mean, it's air conditioned everywhere, highly so. So we've gotten used to everything. I don't know about her, but for me, I feel like it's perfect now.
Yeah, we have managed
What
to
do you
adapt
think?
to the conditions. For me, it's one of those we have managed to adapt to the conditions here. So we're now like the locals, really. We can't really complain. And also with the air outside, it's now a little bit mild, as we saw that the game on Monday, they managed to play it. It was a little bit foggy, but now it has been consistent, and it's now okay. It's no longer as terrible as the social media has been showing all along. So it's now almost like to normal, the usual.
Almost.
Yeah. So it's now like manageable, really.
How have you had? You said you've adapted to it. How have you had to adapt? What changes have you had to make? To daily life since you've come over to India? Because you're from, you're from one of you Zimbabwe, one of you South Africa. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I don't know if the body. I don't know if the body just automatically gets, when you're in when you're in one place for a long period of time, something just happens. I don't know if the body just adapts itself to, the weather, because there's really nothing that we did. All we
Besides
have to
getting the
do,
flu.
I mean, yeah, we've gotten sick a couple of times with the flu, and I think it was just, our bodies just getting adapted to the new weather. But in terms of anything that we've had to do to adapt, I don't think there's much we've had to do besides having to drink lots of water to stay hydrated. And I think we didn't have to do much. The weather did a lot by changing, by being cooler. So that's what happened.
And the other thing I noticed, the way we had already changed our diet as well. So I'm sure there were certain nutrients as well which were contributing. We might have not known because they were new dishes, but somehow it's like those nutrients, somehow they managed to help our bodies adapt. And if there were any small bacteria or anything which we're reacting to, I'm sure our bodies were already ready for such things. And it was easy transitions, as much as one of us started off with the flu and then it had to spread to all of us. So by the time we all finished, really, it was now like our immune system was now stronger to face what was going on around here, since with the new antibodies now. So the
Are
Yeah.
you
diet
enjoying?
goes along with that.
Are you enjoying the local food? And how are you being looked
Oh yes.
after?
What are you enjoying besides the chili part? Chill. It's quite chilly, but it's one of
Too
those. It's
spicy?
nice, but
Too spicy?
yeah.
Very much so. And I've got zero tolerance for spicy food. So the lady that helps us at the house has been just trying to make food that we are comfortable with. And I feel like we've been eating less of Indian food and more food that we are comfortable eating. But my favorite Indian dish or Indian food, I must say, it's definitely their dumplings, the steamed ones, steamed or boiled.
I'm just on
Steamed.
it
Steam, yes.
at the moment.
They have to be my favorite Indian food.
Yeah.
I've got to dash off to take a quick call. Can I rejoin you again shortly?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we can definitely do it again a bit later on, just to talk about the match
Yeah.
between the two teams. Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you
thanks,
so much,
guys.
David.
Great to talk to
Thank
you
Thank
you.
both.
you.
See you later.
Thank
Yeah, and that was David Brooks just talking to us about, what happened yesterday, the Glenn Maxwell show, and all the records that he has broken. And of course, coming to today's match, he's a very confident Englishman today, just believing that England will get to finish off strong, or at least just finish off on a higher note. But we'll see how that match ends between the two teams. Currently, the score is 132 for the loss of two in 20.2 overs. So that's not really a very bad start for England, just losing one wicket in that first power play and going on stronger.
uh, your conversation with David got me thinking that we are all talking about Glenn Maxwell, right? And how Afghanistan did well. Would you say towards the end, when they're now having so many drop catches and those LBWs which were not counted for,
Yeah.
were they like giving up, or I don't know, what do you think could have happened in that thinking, really?
I mean, when you see especially how Afghanistan started the match,
Yeah.
anyone who again goes back to the mentality, it's a mental game at the end of the day,
Yeah.
the psychological game. So when you start the way that they started, and you starting as well as they did, coming to the end, of course there's going to be quite a few mistakes that you make, also because you're looking at the score that you have to chase. Then it comes with just making a lot of mistakes. But for Glenn Maxwell to bounce back the way that he did. David mentions that he'll be playing, but he said that he's going back home. Of course, after that injury, whether it's a back injury or it's the leg, whatever it is. So he should be proud of himself for just single-handedly taking the team to the semi-final. But yeah, I think this is where we should park it for today and come back.
Before we do
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
one more question. It's one of those, what do you think will happen on Friday when Afghanistan is playing SA? Like, and besides
I think
SA winning the toss and wanting to bat first, do you think they'll be brave enough to be like, we're going to chase against Afghanistan based on what we have seen yesterday, how Afghanistan have been putting on the fight even against the big team like Australia, as much as South Africa won against Australia? Do you think it will be an
So
easy game?
For who? I don't think it's
for
gonna
South
be. I don't
Africa.
think it's gonna be an easy match. I'll tell you why. Because Afghanistan, like we spoke yesterday in the preview, that they won most of their games by chasing, and in the chasing, they've been successful in the chasing. However, for South Africa, on the other hand, you know that this is a team that relies on betting first. So Afghanistan, in as much as they knew and they know how to chase matches, we've seen yesterday, they've managed to set a record. However, not so high. I believe that a record that should be high or should be considered high in this tournament is anything above 350, because teams are easily able to chase anything less than 300. We've seen it also again yesterday with what Australia did. So I don't think it's going to be an easy game for either of the teams. And I would like to see, the two teams just testing each other's strength, honestly, in the weaker, positions. They know that South Africa is weaker in which department, and South Africa, surely they also know that when it comes to chasing, this is a team that does really well. So they will want to set a score. If they do bat first, they will want to set a score that is above 350. So just to make it a bit difficult for them to chase that one. So it's definitely going to be an interesting match to look forward to. Yeah, so you and I will come back a bit later on to talk about obviously this match that's currently underway, and that is where we are leaving it right now for our watch along. We'll be back for the second part a bit later on in the show, and just to give you an update as to what has transpired and what to expect towards the end of the match.